we can do.
That light on the left, so it hits the speaker.
Pardon me?
Yeah, that light, so it'll light you up. That seems good.
That'll work.
Okay, well, all right, whatever works, go ahead. At any rate, give you a little bit idea of what you're in for today before I start. I am now Dave Seaborg, but I am going to give you science and theater. So I am going to be, as I am dressed, Charles Darwin, but transported from his life in the 1800s to today, as if he knew all of the current evolutionary theory and findings since his theory of evolution, as well as the controversies. So I'll be talking as Darwin as if he were here with today's knowledge. And I will be Charles Darwin taking on his character because it is theater, so I will talk as if I am him in the first person, not Darwin said, my theory said. The one thing the theater will lack is, even though I know about Darwin and I will act as best as I can from my knowledge what he was like, is the accent. I don't know what his British accent was like back then. A current British accent would be somewhat off, no doubt, but moreover, the best British I ever did in simulating a British accent was when, after the British invasion headed by the Beatles, and they learned to, because the American audience is bigger than the British all sang with American accents. There was one really novel idea of the British invasion. Herman's Hermits came out with a record where they spoke with a strong, I think it was a Cockney accent, and I was able to sort of master, you know, that accent of that hit, Mrs. Browning, what a lovely daughter. But other than that, I think it would be silly for me, with my inability to do a British accent, to try that, so I will speak American English. And Dave Bolin, who introduced me, will now introduce Charles Darwin, and I will take on his persona until this whole lecture and question and answer period is over.
Charles Darwin was born February 12, 1809, the same day and year as Abraham Lincoln. We are celebrating Dr. Darwin's birthday today. He is one of the three greatest scientists ever, the other two being Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. Darwin would be a renowned biologist even if he did not originate the theory of evolution. He showed that plants respond positively to light. He explained the formation of coral reefs and atolls. He was instrumental in starting the field of ecology. He did extensive studies in domestic pigeons and their variability, and on barnacles. He suggested the chemical explanation to the origin of life, was the first to suggest correctly that humankind originated in Africa, and wrote an important book on the evolution of emotion. His book, The Origin of Species, published in 1859, laid out his theory of evolution by natural selection. This book was the first time all evidence for evolution was set forth. He was the first, along with Alfred Russel Wallace, to explain the mechanism of evolution, which is natural selection. Dr. Darwin.
Thank you very much. It's very good to come here up into the year 2013. It's been a long time since the 1800s, and to see all the changes. And one of those changes in technology is the ability to do these videos. And it's just been called to my attention that the people who are interested in videoing this would like some assistance. If anyone else has a camera or a video or a smartphone that can do this, raise your hand and join them. If not, it's okay. But they have just pointed out that they don't have enough information to do more than about 15 or 20 minutes of the hour-long talk. So if you have something, let them know. Otherwise, or either way, we will now get started. My theory of evolution by natural selection goes something like this. One other logistical problem. Carl, may I borrow your watch for a little bit? For your watch, so that thank you very much. What? You're leaving early? Oh. Okay. Well, so my theory of evolution by natural selection states that organisms vary, and all species can produce more other organisms by reproduction than the environment can support. Therefore, some will die due to predation or starvation. And they vary. They are not all the same. Therefore, some of them who are better fit to the environment, not necessarily better in all ways, but better fit to their environment, survive and reproduce. And those organisms are more or less similar to their parents, so that those that survive and reproduce pass on the genes with similar characteristics. So the name of the game to win the game of evolution is survival and reproduction, passing on the genes. It is not a game that's played consciously where you plot out strategies. It's something that just happens. Okay, now, first slide shows the peacock, and we are going to return to this slide, but we want to go to evolution explains biodiversity. So evolution, what is the biodiversity that we want to explain? A little bit of history of the natural world, how it came about. The Earth came about in the solar system about 5 billion years ago, and life appeared somewhere around 3.5 or more billion years ago as simple bacteria. It stayed this way for a very long time until about 900 million years ago, when we get it is called the Ediacaran fauna, which are organisms that did not have bones or skeletons. So we only have their impressions from when they crawled on the seafloor and left prints that became fossils. These existed from about 900 million to 580 million years ago. About 580 million years ago, life underwent a very large change. It did not happen exactly all at once. We're talking over tens of millions of years, but geologically, it was a very short time. Skeletons appeared, and we got actual fossils. At this point, life diversified into all the major phyla, all the major groups of animals today appearing still in the sea. This is the Cambrian period, and this period is called the Cambrian explosion. And at this time, we got some of the earliest life found in Canada in the Burgess Shale, which is the record of fossils in the Canadian Rockies. It includes Anomalocaris, which is this big predator just a little to the left of the center of the screen, which was a monstrous predator that ate the other animals. The burrowing Pikaia, which is the first one of our line, the chordates, which led to the vertebrates. It did have a protonotochord, which is our, yes?
Mr. Darwin, would you give a scale on this drawing?
Yes, we're looking at Anomalocaris might be, we're looking at something that's about 1 foot or 18 inches in length, this stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have there our first, the burrowing one over there on the right side is the precursor to our line that was already in the Burgess Shale, and maybe the oldest vertebrate ancestor, which is our phylum, the chordates, although not everyone agrees. Then we've got the very spiky little guy here, called Hallucigenia, and then the cup-like Morella over on the left side, and these are giving you an idea of how different life looked back then at the beginning, the first higher life. Most of these invertebrates, Anomalocaris being an arthropod. Now, before I go on, I want to remind you of the classification system of today. Remember, you learned this in high school biology. However, it's a little bit different than the way you learned it. The biggest grouping of life is no longer the kingdom, it is the domain. So there are 3 domains of life. Within the domain, the next level is the kingdom. Kingdoms include, for example, animals is a kingdom. Plants are a kingdom. Fungi are a kingdom. The next level down is the phylum. So phylum within the animal kingdom that we are is the chordates. That means you have, at some time in your life, you have gill slits. In our case, humans, it's only as embryos. Fish are chordates, they have gills when they're adults. It means you have something called a notochord at some point in your life. In our case, this is replaced with our vertebrae. It also means you have a dorsal that is on the back of you, hollow nerve tube or spinal cord. So that's the chordates. The other phylum of major interest shown here are the arthropods, which include crabs and insects, and Anomalocaris. Below the phylum is the class. Our class is the mammals. Another class within the chordates is the reptiles. And next level is the order, then the family, then the genus, then the species. Okay, that we want to bear in mind. You can have subphyla, superorders, and subspecies, and so on. In fact, we, the chordates, have a subphylum where the vertebrates. Okay.